All right, I do have a bit of a warning here. And the warning is that this presentation is rated at least PG-13. In fact, the Bible's rated R. Did you know that? But we're going to go to at least PG-13 here, and we're going to be correct, not politically correct, all right? So here we go. Let's start out in the business world. How many people in here are in business somehow? It's business, okay. I've been in business for many years, and I want to ask you some questions about business ethics. In business relationships, is it ethical to promise what you're not committed to deliver? Is it ethical to bait and switch? Is it ethical to pressure vulnerable people into decisions that will hurt them in the future? In fact, you want to know why we had a financial meltdown about 10 years ago? Because we were pressuring people to take loans that we knew they couldn't repay. And that led to a collapse. It's unethical. Is it ethical to get someone to consent by hiding important information, such as the risk of disease and addiction? Is that ethical to do? Gee, no, you turn on the TV and you see a commercial for some sort of medicine, and the side effects seem like, I'd rather have the disease, you know? But they warn you about all that. Is it ethical to offer a long-term position to someone and then withdraw it immediately after the person is committed to you and turn down other offers? Is it ethical to consent with another person to break the law? No, of course not. You can't consent to break the law. Consent doesn't make it right. These are all business relationships. Next question. In personal relationships, is it ethical to promise what you're not committed to deliver? Bait and switch? Pressure vulnerable people into decisions that will hurt them in the future? How about get someone to consent by hiding important information about disease and addiction? How about, is it ethical to offer a position and then withdraw it? Is it ethical to consent to break the law? Why do we think that what's wrong in business isn't necessarily wrong in personal relationships? Because there's people in business and there's people in personal relationships. Why do we treat them differently? Because many of us do. Many of us think, look, well, if we consent to something, it's okay. Really? What's the new religion in America? It's the religion of sex. You notice that just about everything we fight over culturally has to do with sex? Whether it's abortion, whether it's same-sex marriage, whether it's transgenderism, or what bathrooms we're going to use. Do you know, if you took sex off the table, there would be a lot fewer things to argue about politically. Because the new religion is the religion of sex. And if you, in any way, oppose that religion, that's a religion of the sword. They will come after you. They will hurt you in the name of inclusion, tolerance, and diversity. Now, what does this religion of sex teach us? What's their philosophy? Well, try before you buy. What is she, a car? Really? Or, I love you, but I'm not ready to commit. Okay, that's a contradictory statement right there. Because love, by definition, binds itself. If you love somebody, that means you're committed to them. There's no such thing as free love. In order to love someone, you have to commit to them. That's the whole point. In fact, I was sitting next to a woman on an airplane a week ago, and we got talking, and her daughter had just been dumped by a guy. And I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, the guy said, you know, if you love me, you'll have sex with me. And she refused. He said, I love you, but if you love me, you'll have sex with me. And she refused, and so then he dumped her. Did he really love her? No, exactly the opposite. Oh, she was depressed over it, but I said, you know, your daughter did the right thing. Because he was not committed to her. Oh, and by the way, if it's consensual if it doesn't hurt anyone, it's just fine. You've heard that too, right? Really? How do you know it doesn't hurt somebody? And what does hurt mean? Is it just physical hurt? What about emotional hurt, psychological hurt, moral hurt, spiritual hurt? How do you know what you do today is not going to hurt somebody else down the road? By the way, have you ever done anything that you thought was just fine at the time and later you regretted it? And they also say that sex is just physical. That's what the culture says. Sex is just physical. Really? I know people, and there's people in this room that are experiencing this or have experienced it. I know people that were sexually abused, and they still struggle decades later. If sex is just physical, why is that? If sex is just physical, why is it if somebody rapes you, it's worse than if somebody just physically assaults you? If sex is just physical, why is it if your spouse goes and has sex with somebody else, you don't go, oh, that's just physical? Because you know it's not. There's so much more than the physical. It's spiritual, it's emotional, it's psychological. You have sex with someone, everything changes forever. Sex is like fire. You put it in your fireplace, it's wonderful. It'll warm you. You get it anywhere else in your house, it will burn your house down. Maybe not immediately, but over the long term it will. And everyone in here who's over 40 knows what I'm talking about because many of us have tried it. Oh, we're going to do it our way. I got this, no problem. No, you don't. It's not just physical. It's one of the greatest gifts God has given us, which means it's also one of the most dangerous because it is a lot more than just the physical. You say, yeah, this is what the culture teaches. But it's not just the culture that's affected by it. This is the PG-13 portion. 11 is the average age that a child is first exposed to pornography, and 94% of children see it by 14. This is not just the world, ladies and gentlemen. This is the church. I can't believe this next point, but it's true. 68% of church-going men and over 50% of pastors view porn on a regular basis. Pastors! 76% of Christian adults 18 to 24 are searching for porn. Pornography increases marital infidelity by more than 300%. And one of the biggest problems is that pornography creates new neural pathways in your brain, which creates addiction and inhibits your ability to have normal sex. Oh, it doesn't hurt anyone. Right now, because some people here have a porn addiction, there is some young girl being abducted in this town to be sold into the sex industry. And this is what's happening. It changes your brain. This is one reason why Paul said, flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a man commits are outside his body, but he who sins sexually sins against his own body. You're actually hurting yourself physically. He goes on to say, do you not know that the body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own, you were bought at a price. In fact, John Calvin said that's the whole summary of Christianity right there. You are not your own, you were bought at a price. Therefore, honor your body, or honor God with your body. Look, there's only two choices. Everyone only has two choices in worship. You can either worship the Creator or some aspect of the creation. At the end of the day, there's only two religions. You're either worshiping the Creator or some aspect of the creation. And everyone worships something. Atheists worship something. They may be worshiping themselves, their own autonomy. They may be worshiping recognition. Many of us in this room don't always have Jesus on the top rung of our priority list, do we? It may be sex. It may be money. It may be power. There's something that we're putting above God. And it's not only hurting others, it's hurting ourselves.